Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see what if Issei is Son of Vinea. Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Issei was quite proud of himself for the past couple weeks with everything he had done, but he had definitely taken a wrong step by not paying attention to the energies inside the orc clubroom, and when he walked into an argument between Riaz and Riser. When he came in, all the attention was on him. Bad time? Asked Issei. Obviously, yes. Said Grafia. Then I'll excuse myself then. He said, but he was interrupted and intercepted by Riaz. Hey, don't forget about our date tonight. And he could feel the heat coming off of Riser as he got pissed off. You're dating this worm? Riser asked, and it ticked Issei off a little bit, but he decided to play along since he had heard about the despicable man and his want to bully this guy was going nuts. Sure, is there something wrong with that, Riser Phoenix? Asked Issei, and this stunned Riser since Issei knew exactly who he was, but because of that he was willing to push the bill and see if he could force his influence on Issei. If you know who I am, then you know what I do to those who stand in my way. Now Bago. Riser started, and Issei interrupted. I know that you are a despicable man who sees women as nothing more than a stepstone to make you more popular. I know what you do to people who don't do what you say, and I know that you are a man-child and a brat who has never been told no by his parents. You have no authority over me, Riser, as my blood is just as ancient as yours. Vinea sends his regards. Said Issei, and he sat down on the couch with a smirk on his face, and he could tell that Mitsuda was quite happy with his actions even without turning around and looking at him. What does he have to do with our marriage, Riaz? Why is he here? Asked Riser. He is part of the program to teach the young noble devils by using others' experience. He came by at my request, thanks to the devil I share this territory with. She lied, and this piled on perfectly, almost overwhelming the Phoenix air. I will fight you for my freedom. You only see me as a trophy, and I cannot and will not be with a man who sees me as only that. Said Riaz, and Issei's smirk kept growing bigger, and Grafia seemed to also smile at this and decided to deliver the news to Surziches when Riser decided to leave. Ha 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 ha. I shouldn't be doing what I did, but I couldn't help it. He is just too easy to bully. Issei said while shedding a tear while laughing, but he calmed down knowing that everyone else didn't share his sentiment. Now, I know you and yours need to train, but I feel like that man-child needs to learn a lesson or two about women and how people won't always bend to his will. So I will be loaning you my combat Bishop Rainier, Rukogi, and Queen Kuroka, who will substitute as a secondary knight. I won't be handing over Caddis because she needs further training and is still too new to real combat. Fighters like Risers may be a little too much to throw at her right now, and her Sea Dragon gear is similar to your boosted gear, Mitsuda. If she gets pissed off enough, she can and will go berserk. I need her to learn how to control it and not let it wash over her, no pun intended. Said Issei, and he left and waved at Riaz. It looked like she was a little more calm since she was receiving reinforcements from her underling who had strong allies but was strong themselves as well. He went home and sat down on the couch and felt that strange feeling again in his head. Taking out his gun again and looking straight at it, and then a strong heartbeat, and his mind was finally in tune with the being inside the gun. Finally he listens to me, at least respond. His gun said out loud. So you are the one talking inside my head. I thought I was going insane hearing voices in my head. Said Issei. Ha, I guess you can call it that, but no, I do have a name, Vulcan. Said Vulcan. Ha, how the hell does a Roman god get from Italy to Japan? Legions never got this far because their territory was too large for them to control reliably. Said Issei. Yes, well. I was contained in this gun then sold to the Chinese. Back then I was nothing more than an experimental core. Back then people were more in tune with the supernatural than they are now. Back then people wielded their sacred gears more openly. But I went from Italy as an experiment to China. They made a rifle, and I was in one of them, and next thing I know I was thrust into the war in Japan. But it was different. It was war, and sacred gears were a rarity, and not wielded openly as they were seen as witchcraft. I got picked up by some mercenaries and used. They defected when Nobunaga had died and they went into hiding. They were not like the Iga shinobi, but different, hunters, snipers and gunners. I wasn't used again until you picked me up for the first time. Said Vulcan, and Issei decided to holster the gun and see if he could communicate to Vulcan in his mind, and it was successful. The only thing he had to worry about was Caddis, since he could trust Ogi, Rainier and Kuroka to do their jobs when he would send them to fight for Riaz. The day came and Caddis stood next to Issei and waved goodbye to 3 of his peerage members, knowing that they were going to be training for the raiding game, and it was his turn to give specific training to his knight. You and I are going to do some serious training. You did well during combat at the old church, but you are still too new to combat, so. Issei moved both her and himself to the kendo room at the school and set a barrier on the room. Hit me with everything you have got, if you can hit me. he said, and she drew her sword and they stood there, Issei with his arms open and Caddis in her stance that she used for kendo, and she attacked first, but it wouldn't bug him, only if her speed was fast enough, but she wasn't even close enough. You need to focus on points that are easy to hit, not points that are hard to hit. Remember, I am not a sword user, so I can dodge all day unless you use something else as well, he said, and he stepped in and pushed her back, making her stumble and fall on her butt. Let's go again, I need some more before I can properly train you, he said, and she charged him, but this time she was pissed off and her strikes were getting more accurate, aiming for his gut and neck. Her speed was picking up as well. Okay, that's enough, said Issei, and this time he grabbed her arm and using a jujitsu throw, he grabbed her by the shirt and threw her, and her body didn't take any damage and she didn't feel any pain. But you need to control that temper. That could be the factor that gets you killed, said Issei, and he helped her up and then started teaching her another form of martial arts to use alongside her sword skills, but kept reminding her to never use it during a kendo match. It took her 9 days to completely memorize the basic attacks, grabs and throws. On the second day he was borrowing a part of the kendo room to train her, but by using the bamboo swords, a feeling of when the weapons were equal to one another, one not more power than the other on its own, but completely reliant on the users. The third day they had the room to themselves, and this time Issei casted a barrier and had her focus on her dragon's water-based powers. First was the ice crystals, sharp and cold and heavy in anyone but her dragon. In her own touch, she succeeded and was able to pin Issei, who was trying to escape the attack. The fourth day he did the same thing, but this time using his eyes of Tharsis, he was able to dodge and counter each one and sent one back at her by deflecting it with his gun. She countered and shattered the ice spike. The training continued each day and her powers became more and more focused, however she wasn't able to reach the potential needed to activate her balance breaker. Good, now let's try that again, but this time, we are taking out my special toy, Issei said, and he drew his gun, then pointed it at her. Issei, don't point that at me, I don't want to die. What did I do to deserve it? She asked, and Issei said. Don't worry about it, it's loaded with practice rounds. They will hurt, but they won't kill, said Issei, and she began to charge, and Issei fired 3 rounds and she cut all 3 in half, making them miss. She then used her sword and used it to block the next 3, and then she grabbed Issei after getting low and flipped Issei using her leg, and her blade was at his chest. Good, but now you need to use it in real combat, Issei said, and when they were done he moved both of them back to his house. Go take a shower, I will take one after, he said, but Caddis started, then stopped, turned around and launched herself at Issei, and she tackled him, kissing him on the mouth. The kiss was a long one and tongues fought and intertwined, and they separated and both were panting hard. If you're not careful, I would start to think that you want me to bang your brains out, said Issei, and then she got closer and put her mouth near his head. Maybe that is what I want, said Caddis while nibbling his ear. Oh, she's going to spoil me, said Issei in his mind, and he could hear Vulcan laughing up a storm at what he just heard and can see from his partner's point of view. The sex that they had at his house and in the shower was quite a bit, and he was fine, but he could easily tell that Caddis couldn't walk straight because of what he did with her, but that wasn't what mattered. Tonight we let the sowers run red with the blood of strays. I asked Rias for stray contracts and she gave me a good stack of them. Now you can get combat experience, and when we are done we rest, but be ready the day after tomorrow early. I want to make sure to watch and keep an eye on my people. Most of all, I want to see how well my peerage performs. It's combat veterans against combat veterans, so things should be interesting as they are outnumbered and outgunned, said Issei, and that night was as he described it. The sowers ran red, and Issei only had to watch as Caddis got stronger and stronger. With more experience came more strength, starting with the weak ones, then going to the stronger ones, using his gun to find weaknesses in the stray and letting Caddis deal with the rest. Her skill was evolved and magnificent. There was not one of the strays that could stop her that night, her sword and abilities flowing like water. The night ended and Caddis collapsed and delivered her to her house and stayed over, but this time he would sleep next to her. Morning came and she woke up, sore in the muscles, but she felt much stronger than she did the days before. On his own time he escaped to the roof the day before the battle and decided to speak to Ogi, despite having to go to class. So Ogi, how's it going? Be honest, don't feed me what I want to hear, said Issei through a communication circle. Well, we are in top shape. Old man Tannen saw us as enough to face the incoming onslaught, but he still had us train just less brutally than Rias and her peerage. Boss, they don't stand a chance. It's highly likely that they will be slaughtered during this fight, but let me put the bad news to the side for a moment. It seems the Kaneko has finally forgiven and is more drawn to Kuroka. I feel happy for them both, said Ogi. Regardless, we will fight our hardest, and also, we received a message to you from Surzetches. He wishes for you to be at the observation area with him. Already? Damn, that was fast. Or no, Rias must have told him, or maybe Tannen, who knows. Just fight your best and hardest, don't let yourself be smacked around, said Issei. Roger, said Ogi. Issei returned to class and was sternly talked to by his science teacher, but then the teacher just let it go and told Issei to take a seat. The rest of the day went as expected, and the training continued for Caddis until her arms were sore and she could no longer pick up the sword. He escorted her home, carrying her bag and bid her goodnight, using a transportation circle. The home he lived in was eerily quiet. He was used to Ogi snoring and Kuroka playing video games and being her usual cheerful self. Weird, very weird. Said Issei. You can say that again, partner. Said Vulcan. The day of the raiding game came and Issei was summoned by a mate of his family and brought to the spectator's box, and he sat at his father's right-hand side between his father and the Phoenix clan head, the father of Riser Phoenix. Riser's father tapped Issei on the shoulder and said, "I know you loaned troops to Ria's Gremory and feigned my son into thinking you were dating her. Is it true or were you messing with him?" He asked. "I was just toying with him. He made it too easy to get under his skin. It showed how much of what I said was correct, words which I will not repeat here," said Issei, and Jiro was confused, wondering what his son had done when he was gone. "Master Issei, I have brought you your knight," said the mate, and she left as soon as the Caddis was delivered to him. "Still sore in the arms?" asked Issei, and Caddis responded saying no, but he could tell she was still a little strained, and the raiding game began when Grafia appeared in her studio where she did announcements. The raiding game between Riser Phoenix and Ria's Gremory will begin in 2 minutes. Plan your strategies. Grafia said, and there was an overlay of the maps given to them, and Ria's was making a plan, but Riser seemed to still be just sitting there. "Mr. Phoenix," Issei whispered to Riser's father, "is your son always so cocky?" "Unfortunately yes, embarrassingly so. My son will probably just do it in this way, try to wear down Ria's forces, and then make an all-out push. If he wins I do not care, but if he loses I would be happy, since he would learn something since he is getting full of himself. Some of his peerage shares the same sentiment as I, but they must fight as hard as they can," said Riser's father. The battle raged, and Ogi was doing very good, resisting attacks like it was nothing and breaking weapons with bare fists in the gymnasium, with Mitsuda, Kuroka and Kaneko teamed up and were pushing the forces that were flanking into full retreat, and Rainier was waiting for an opponent to fall into Akeno's traps so she could wipe them out. Hiba and Asia stayed back and protected Ria's and the base from intruders. So far everything was going perfectly. Issei continued to smile as more and more of Riser's pieces were defeated one by one. All that was left was the queen, Riser's ace piece, the 2 bishops, one being his sister, a knight, a rook and 3 pawns. Kaneko and Kuroka had been defeated by the bomb queen by blowing them up, and Ogi was defeated when he was outnumbered, and Akeno was defeated by being too hasty. Issei took notes to know what to train them in when he got home. Rainier was protecting Ria's using her shadow spells, while Kiba and Mitsuda were busy dealing with the remaining pieces, and they dealt with them quickly until Kiba was defeated by the bomb queen and rushed off to Riser's side. Rainier was running out of stamina and she was shaking from the strength she used up. Mitsuda came from the side and protected Asia from a bomb spell from Riser's queen, and Rainier decided she had enough and eliminated her quickly. "Check," said Ria's, surrounding Riser with herself, Rainier and Mitsuda. Asia had passed out from the explosive pressure and was lying motionless on the ground except her breathing. "Surrender Riser, you are outnumbered 3-1. Said Ria's, and then Riser laughed and first attacked Mitsuda, throwing him back, and then Rainier kicking her backwards. She hit the pavement with a thud and she was taken out of the game. Overall he was impressed with how long Rainier lasted, but decided there was still room for improvement and wrote some more notes. Mitsuda got up time and again and tried to fight Riser, but it ended with Ria's resigning and Surzich's being disappointed. He wrote a note and asked the maid to give it to Grafia, and she did as such when Grafia stepped out of the studio. "Surzich's Pav. Surzich's Lucifer, would you contact me after the raiding game? I have an idea, you may or may not like it, but it may be worth your time if you hear me out," said Surzich's, and he smiled and called immediately. "You told me to call Vinea." Asked Surzich's Lucifer. "Yes, I want to have a re-empowered Red Dragon Emperor to save your sister. She dotes on him, obviously, so what if her Crimson Pawn came to the rescue to save his king? I imagine that would convince your father and his father to decide to call it off." Issei said, ha ha ha. "Yes, I like this plan. What will you need?" Asked Surzich's, and Issei explained what he would need and he agreed to it, even the sigil of the intruder that Issei had named it, but it was obviously an intrusion seal that every devil learned, and Surzich's agreed, and it caused a smile to creep across his face. "So when does this plan get enacted?" Asked Surzich's. "Isn't it obvious? On the night of engagement, of course, the Phoenix guards will be present, and so my peerage and Ria's peerage will open a path for him if they interfere. This should give him a taste and a want to achieve the power I gave him a taste of," said Issei. "Engagement night, Mitsuda's Pav. He should be coming around soon," said Asia, and Mitsuda woke up and he borrowed a multitude of things for his interception at the party. Then Grafia appeared. "Use this, I imagine my lady would love to see you come in and swipe her from the beak of the Phoenix. The only way is to fight, also a gift from young Lord Vinea." said Grafia handing the pieces to Mitsuda, and in his hand lay 5 energy-boosting syringes and something that is considered contraband, a bottle of holy water. He pocketed the items and grabbed the cross with his sacrificed arm and pocketed it as well. Mitsuda used the magic circle and the fight was on. Issei's POV. Ballroom, Phoenix Mansion. It should be occurring right about now, battle faces on, if they try to intercept, disable, but don't kill. Said Issei and they all nod when they came. Issei came and he had come dressed as a cavalier, his knight Caddis in a nice one-piece dress which stopped at the knees, Kuroka in a kimono, Ogi in his honor guard clothes, and Rainier came in a suit since she didn't have clothes for herself yet. But even Ria's peerage whom he was hanging around because he could was also ready. Sona was also there, but was keeping a close eye on Issei, wondering what he was planning. The procession was beginning, and Riser had just entered the room, and then Ria's did, and just as she entered the doors were blown open, and 2 guards lay unconscious in front of him, the other guards reacted, and Issei and Ria's peerage acted quickly, and Mitsuda unchallenged walked up the middle, and challenged the marriage between Riser and Ria's. Issei could tell that this left a lasting effect on Ria's. Riser said that he couldn't object, but then Surzetches asked why he couldn't, and the idea seemed quite entertaining to him. The two were set to duel for Ria's, and Mitsuda stated his only want. Ria's to have her freedom of choice for who she decides to love. The battle began and Mitsuda immediately promoted to queen and activated what he thought he would activate, the boosted gear's balance breaker, and he immediately took the shots he gave him, and Issei noticed the overcharge on his body. He could sustain the armor for about a minute, but then his body would start deteriorating or the armor would deactivate. The dragon armor-clad Mitsuda charged at Riser and his first punch landed, he missed another running into a wall breaking it, and his strikes continued, and finally he ran out of gas after striking the cross-bearing fist. Riser was pissed, and he grabbed Mitsuda by the face and prepared a fireball, and Mitsuda intercepted him by quickly dousing Riser in holy water, causing damage to the phoenix, and could not get his strength under control. He grabbed the remaining holy water and doused a cross in it and boosted to a high level and dumped the remaining power into the holy water bearing cross and he punched Riser in the gut and that was the final blow as it made Riser crumple to the floor, cradling his gut from the powerful attack. Issei smiled and gathered his peerage. It is done, we can leave now. Said Issei and they all left by a teleportation circle back to his home, a smile on his face that the plan worked. It was an idea in his head, but it was Zetches who made it work. Well, I think that went smoothly, boss. Said Ogi. Yes, it did, but still, I feel uneasy like something else is going to happen. Said Issei and everyone looked at him confused not knowing what he meant. I mean, first off we haven't found the one in charge of the fallen angels that were operating out of the church. Issei said also don't forget to mention we don't even know where the bastard is considering we don't even know the name of the one in charge. Said Ogi. Yes, you're right. Maybe I should spill it all then. Said Rainier and Issei looked over concerned about what he was going to hear next. The one in charge is a cadre class fallen angel. I don't know for sure who it is, but the orders definitely came down from one of them. It's the only way so many of us could group in a single area without bickering about who is in charge. Said Rainier. I left and intended to defect during the time when the second set of orders was sent. I wanted to defect because of what they wanted to do. Absolute demolition of the town of Kuo. But nothing has happened yet, so I have to assume they are waiting for something, or they are building up little by little to avoid detection. Then we must proceed with caution. If we are not careful, finding them could be like stepping on a landmine. Said Ogi. I agree. I normally don't have opinions on conversations like this. But I agree, even a cornered cat or mouse will bite their hunter. Said Kuroka. Issei noticed she dropped the Naya from her sentences, so she must have been taking it seriously. So they want to destroy our home? Asked Caddis. I won't let that happen, as long as I have a say in what is going on, or if I can intervene. Said Issei. Putting that aside, you are all getting new training regimen. After witnessing your skill in the raiding game I know how to advance your abilities. Said Issei, and he handed out lists to everyone but Caddis who he was still working on. So, you want me to attempt to see if I have a sacred gear? Asked Ogi. Yes, but even if you don't it will not change your position for the negative in our group here, it's optional. Said Issei. Kuroka read it and put it down. Rainier read it and she saw something she didn't expect on the bottom right corner. You did the best out of everyone, keep it up. Issei. She read it and smiled, putting it away. Son, I am home and I have something to tell you. Said Jiro, appearing out of the doorway. We have the house scheduled to be rebuilt, so if you wake up tomorrow and find the house bigger don't be surprised. Said Jiro, sitting down at the table. Should I make tea, master? Asked Caddis, and this made Issei flinch. Don't call me master, my name is fine, Caddis. Said Issei. Then why does Ogi call you boss? Asked Kuroka. Because I'm fine with it, and if he wanted to call me out by name I know he would. It's just that Caddis, unlike the three of you, is new to the idea of there being a truly existing supernatural world. Said Issei. And right then Caddis came in with a TO, so you are babying one of your servants? Asked Jiro. No, in fact before the raiding game, I put her through the ringer with some training, now she can fight strays, sometimes alone if she has to. Said Issei, but isn't that dangerous? Asked Ogi sipping his tea. Yes, but it gave her an understanding of how and why those beings are as dangerous as they are, and as you can see by the way she looks, no scars and no permanent damage, so I think she is doing fine so far, but the next time we hunt we go together. Speaking about that, your teamwork during the raiding game was excellent, and Ogi thanks for babysitting the red dragon during that game, he needs to be looked after until his gear matures. That's good. He said while sipping his tea. He was happy at his peerage's performance and the results of Cadis's training. Well son, would you like to tell me the stories of all these people? I have heard dear Kuroka's story and I know where Cadis came from, but what about Rainer and Ogi? I know Ogi came from the Royal Guard stock, since the general there is and has always been such a racist pig. So, would you like to tell? Asked Jiro, and Rainer started to explain her story and how she was betrayed and turned into the woman that she is. I now have had my direct revenge on the thralls, but the one who ordered it must be killed. The bad part is just that I don't know who it is that ordered it, said Rainer, who somehow found a bottle of alcohol and was pouring herself another glass. I see. Said Jiro, taking the bottle of alcohol and pouring himself a glass as well. Well, my story isn't as wild as that, but it still has importance in my eyes, that not all leaders are just. But your son, my lord, he is the best man I have served under, and I am thankful to him for picking me. It's just a shame that human-devil hybrids are discriminated against mostly by the pure bloods. Said Ogi. Ha ha, Claudius must be shitting bricks, I remember him saying something about you being in the raiding game, and he was all pissed off. But still, you are right, he's not really fit to lead an army. Said Jiro. Son, go into my room and below the bed there is a box, bring it here. Said Jiro, and Issei went into the room that was his parents', but he was borrowing since he didn't have enough rooms to put all his current peerage members into and went under the bed, and when he pulled out the crate, it was filled with sake. Issei brought it out, but set down the box in the kitchen. Maybe your father has finally found a drinking buddy, said Vulcan. Shut up V, if he did that, mom would be pissed. Said Issei, and he brought the bottle of sake out and set it down in front of his father, who opened it and filled the 2 glasses. Revenge can be nice once you finish it, but be aware of the punishment afterwards. It's like rice, and normal life is like a bowl of warm rice. Revenge is like a cold dish of rice, it isn't as fulfilling. But find another thing to fill that void, and you will go back to the before mentioned normal once that is achieved. Protect it, because if you don't protect it and you lose it, the cycle will repeat and pain will be a constant in your life. Said Jiro. You sound experienced in this, Lord Vinea. Said Rainer, and he nodded and told the full story of his life, and it made Issei understand why his father does what he does, trains others, so that they don't end up like he did. That is very noble, Lord Vinea. Said Vulcan, and Issei set the gun on the table. Your story is almost intertwined with mine, though your time as a samurai was quite interesting. How did you find your wife? Asked Vulcan. That is an interesting story. We were enemies on the battlefield and we couldn't defeat each other. It kept ending up as a draw every single time, but when it all ended was when the civil war broke out. I escaped the Underworld's grasp when I was kicked into the dimensional gap, and that woman found me after about a year of waiting. Gave me plenty of time to reflect on my actions, meditating 24 hours for 365 days. When she found me, I was a changed man. She disliked it at first, but eventually she fell for me again, and I as well in turn. It took a couple years to finally born Issei, my son, and when he was born, my wife was the happiest person alive. Said Jiro. But why take the name Jiro? Asked Vulcan. I didn't, my wife chose it for me and also said it suited my Ronin-like nature. But I learned to accept it because it really is a good name, short and to the point, just like I taught my students in the Devil military. Don't play with your enemy, finish them quickly, as playing with them will lead to your downfall. Said Jiro. Dad, I have something to apologize for. Said Issei, lowering his head so his hair covered his eyes. What is it? Asked Jiro. Remember during the raiding game how there was a bit of chatter between me and Riser's father? I had insulted Riser, maybe at my own expense so I could get a laugh out of it, but I realized that I could have messed things up for us in the long run. Said Issei. It's fine, that boy is the same age as me, and he needs to be put in his place for his cocky nature. He was just as cocky during the war, and especially when we were kids. Said Jiro. Your actions have just given him a reality check, something that he needed desperately in his father's eyes. And this made Issei smile a little bit. There is also something else as well. It seems that Riser's father is trying to get you and Ravel together. She seems to have taken a liking to you. Said Jiro. Oh, for the Underworld's sake, I keep saying that arranged marriages are not something I am willing to do. Said Issei while moving closer to Cadis and hooking his arm around her waist. It's more along the lines that I owe Mr. Phoenix a debt, and this is the only way I can pay it. Just stick with it for now. I might or might not be able to find a way to weasel you out of it. Said Jiro. Okay. Said Issei, though everyone in the room could tell he was disappointed in the outcome. No, you all stay here tonight, I have to work out my frustrations. Said Issei, but Issei, what happens if you die? Asked Kuroka. I will be fine. Said Issei, and he closed the door behind him and took off. It had been a while since he could cut loose and go on the hunt alone. 3 detected already, time to let her rip. Issei said and took off with a burst of speed using his wings, and he could tell the 2 heiresses had detected his power surge, and when he landed he found his first target. A low-level stray. Imagine my luck. Said Issei as he walked forward and then drew his gun. The stray used its tentacles and tried to grab Issei, but he dodged them one by one, while firing a 3-round burst at the stray. Its main body dodged for the most part, but still took damage from the last round, since it grazed the stray's skin. Not bad, but it's time I take it seriously. Said Issei, and he released more of his aura, making the stray cower in fear. Issei in response goes on the attack, getting in close and firing 3 more rounds, ripping through the tendrils, aimed to stop him, blowing them to pieces. His speed almost too much, and he pushed the bill by instead of shooting the next set, threading the needle between 2 of the sets of tendrils and sliding under the last one, and when behind the stray's back he fires the kill shot, taking the stray down. 1 down, 2 more left. Issei said, panting, and he got up and moved on while stepping in the blood leaking from the stray's body. He brought out his wings again, and the same beatdown followed with 2 other strays, but on the last one, he found something he didn't expect. A Valkyrie. Who are you? Asked a curious Issei, and the Valkyrie, wounded and weakened, answered Hilda. Hilda Koss, said the Valkyrie. Why come alone? That seems very risky. Said Issei, I was told someone worth picking up for the Underworld program was here. Instead I found that monster. It was going to use me, and then eat me. Said Hilda, not anymore. I am Issei Vinea, since you are part of the normal supernatural as a whole, I can trust you with my family name. Said Issei, and he picks her up, throwing her over Biss' shoulder and summoning the shadow horse and throwing her over the horse's rear, and he rides quickly back to his home and makes it in 2 minutes flat. You still alive back there? Asked Issei, and Hilda, still in pain from the bruises and broken bones, groans in pain. Issei grabs her and throws her over his shoulder again, and he orders the door to open, and it acknowledges, and he runs in as the door closes behind him. The horse dispels itself and Issei sets the Valkyrie down on a table. Kuroka, get down here. I need help. Said Issei, healing some of the injuries, but his power isn't enough, she is still in pain. Damn it, what the hell is going on with your injuries? Asked Issei, I don't know, I am supposed to have constant healing thanks to being a Valkyrie, but it's not working. Ow. Said Hilda, and Kuroka, half-dressed, gets down the stairs quickly and gets to work. What happened? Asked Kuroka. She went to go and retrieve an Underworld, whatever that is, and a stray was there. It heavily wounded her before I could assist. Said Issei, ow, half my ribs are broken, and I don't know what is happening inside those bruised areas. Said Hilda, wincing in pain, and Issei's mother comes down the stairs and assists as well. Her ribs are broken, and some of the bone fragments have penetrated her internal organs. I will take it from here, thank you Kuroka. Said Miyu, Issei's mother. What the hell happened last night, boss? Why is the babe in grey armor here? Asked Ogi. The babe has a name, dude. Said Hilda, she was wounded last night and we are watching over her until she can contact her superiors or her powers recover, or both. For now just treat her normally. Said Issei, I am heading to school, I need to speak with Sona privately. Issei teleports himself to the student council room, and as expected Sona is there reading reports. I heard you knocked out 3 strays on your own last night. Well done, Sona said while removing her eyes from the report she was reading, but that's not why you're here, is it? Sona asked. You're right, it isn't. During that hunt I found a Valkyrie that was heavily wounded and we were able to save her thanks to Kuroka and my mother, but there is something rather peculiar about what happened. Her equipment and abilities are not working. Said Issei, and this got Sona's attention. Really? Would you mind if I went to your new home and asked her a few questions? Asked Sona. If it helps her get back, do what you must as long as you don't kill her. Said Issei, and they went to his home, and when he appeared, Hilda was wrestling Ogi and she was winning in a contest of strength. Give it up, boy, you are 30 years too young to be able to beat me. Said Hilda, shuddered, need breath. Said Ogi, and this lead them to wrestle more him. Said Issei, clearing his throat, and when he looked at the 2 of them they stopped and Kuroka shook her head and moved to the other room. Ogi, we are going to speak about this later, for now you are coming with me, I leave the lady to you Sona. Issei said, leaving the room. What the hell were you doing? Tumbling around like that with a member of a faction we don't know if they are hostile or not isn't a very good idea. Your punishment is that you are doing double the training regimen. Said Issei, wide. Said Ogi, if you have that much energy you should dedicate it to training your body and your powers. What you are doing with it is practically wasteful. Said Issei. When Sona finishes she motioned for Issei to come inside. I have found out why. Her armor is fine and her body is fine, but she has been bound spiritually to this world. To summarize it, she has been forced to be human, she is no longer a Valkyrie. Said Sona, oh that is not good. Said Issei, I know, I am still processing it myself. said Hilda, and Issei walked over to her and knelt. Hold still, I want to see something, I need to check for myself. Said Issei, what could it hurt? I had my dream come true and then a year later it's ruined, so I can't see how my future could go worse. Said Hilda, on the verge of crying. Issei touched her shoulder and he felt something, but he didn't know what it was. Was it magic? No. This was different and it didn't feel like Senjutsu, but it definitely felt similar to the energy needed for Senjutsu. Stay here, Sona, if you don't mind, I would like to claim her. Said Issei. Already? What did you see? Asked Sona, but Issei was already gone, but this time he brought with him Kuroka and his chess set with the remaining pieces in his possession, the full set of pawns, a knight, a rook and a bishop. It is similar to my energy that I use, but it isn't the same, it's more unstable, said Kuroka, and Senjutsu isn't. Asked Sona. No, the stability of it is highly dependent on the user, since I have been using it for far longer than my sister, I have a much stronger control over it, but this is Kai can take any form you want, but it's primarily used for attacking than healing. Said Kuroka. So a person with Norse origins has Kai, that's not what I expected. Said Issei, and Kuroka got up and bowed and left. So that leaves the question, Hilda. You are now left with a life as a human, do you want back into the supernatural world or would you prefer to stay like this? Asked Issei, and Hilda sat and thought. Would you like some time to think about it? Asked Issei. What are the conditions of this? Asked Hilda. Simple, I will be your master, your king, the highest on the totem pole, do what I say and it will be easy, going off on your own will result in you becoming one of those monsters that almost killed you last night. With this I can help you get stronger and when the time comes we will see why your status as a Valkyrie was revoked. Do we have a deal? Asked Issei. We have a deal, but why are you called king? Asked Hilda. Simple, that's just how chess is designed. Said Issei, opening the box containing his remaining pieces, and he held the bishop near her and he received nothing, then the rook getting the same result and is copied in the knight and he picked up the pawns and all of them were attracted to Hilda's presence. You will take my pawns then? Said Issei. What? Isn't the pawn the weakest unit on the chessboard? Asked Hilda. Yes, but it's highly adaptable, you can promote with my permission to queen, knight, rook or bishop, giving you their advantages. For example, the woman who was just with you, Kuroka, is my queen, she has the advantages of all the pieces and is almost the most powerful. One of my rooks is Ogi, his defensive characteristics is heightened and it's hard for him to be taken down easily, and lastly, my knight Caddis is at her home. But I am trying to get her to come here, but she is new to the idea of the supernatural, her characteristics and speed are heightened and she can traverse the battlefield at high speed, making her a serious threat if not viewed cautiously. And lastly, my bishop, her abilities are heightened when it comes to magic and anything relating to magic, she is an excellent long-range hunter, but falls short of Kuroka. Said Issei. Okay, but you said with your permission, would you be restricting me? Asked Hilda. No, in fact whenever we go into battle I would allow you to promote at your leisure, since you can use it. Said Issei. Then. What do I do? Asked Hilda. Undo your armor at the chest, your chest needs to be exposed for your body to absorb the pieces, but most importantly lie on the bed there because this might put you to sleep. Said Issei, and she did exactly that, and Issei tooled the 8 pieces and set them in a coiled position on her chest and recited the incantation needed and they fell into place one by one and Hilda could feel her power increase as each one took its place inside her and when the last one went in she was stunned and when she tried to get up she felt weak. Stay down, your body is trying to acclimate to the level of power you are receiving. Moving may mess up the process, so stay lying down. Said Issei, and when Hilda did this she went into a deep sleep. Sona, we should head to school, I will send us to your room since few go in there. Said Issei. Do it, but be careful. Said Sona, and they left by the circle again and appeared where they first were. I'll be heading to class then, sorry for you having to discipline me, Prez. Said Issei, opening the door and walking down the hall, and the students seemed to notice it and some didn't take him for a bad boy, but now some did and the rumor spread very fast across the school. Ugh, another rumor just because I came out of the student council room. Said Issei, rubbing his head from the head-splitting headache he was having. Well, you did make a scene, so that's mostly your fault, boss. Said Ogi. Well, that's what happens since you don't tread lightly. Said Caddis, and this contributed to Issei's annoyed nature more and then he felt it. What the hell? Said Issei. You felt it too? Said Riaz, walking up next to Issei. Yeah. Like a shiver down my spine that isn't normal, said Issei, and he told Caddis and Ogi to alert everyone else, then follow, and Riaz and Issei took off in the direction of the pulse of energy and they found Akiba. He had gotten moody. Damn, said Riaz, and Issei looked at her quizzically. He saw a picture of a holy sword from Mitsuda's young age and it set him off. When you were on your hunting spree last night we also were hunting at the same time and he had hesitated during the fight. I disciplined him, but it seems that it's still bugging him. Said Riaz. False alarm, Ogi, return to the Vinea home, it's going to be a long night. Said Issei, and both he and Riaz returned to their homes and Kiba went on that night and found a priest. One that was trying to spread the word killed, a sword through his chest. Kiba identified Excalibur rapidly, and he disappeared after a quick skirmish. Kiba was wounded heavily and spent the day conscious but in pain from the wounds he sustained from the holy sword. Two exorcists found the priest's body and moved on after finding a clue about what they were looking for. The next day, "Hey boss, we have news, good and bad." Bad news, the holy swords of Excalibur, 3 of them have been tracked to our city, and Kiba took damage from one of them. Good news is that he at least survived even though not unscathed. Said Ogi, and another voice, female but not identifiable by Issei, said, "The bad news is that we are here." Said the woman, and Issei turned around and was face to face with 2 of the church's exorcists. "What do you want?" asked Issei. He wasn't hostile, but he was cautious since he knew that those holy swords could definitely hurt him, and if the wielder was strong enough, kill him. "We want you and your peerage to stay out of the church's business and let us deal with the holy swords of Excalibur in your city," said the woman. "Sorry, but no. We know that there is a fallen cadre class in town, so we are already pretty escalated here, and until it is dealt with we cannot stand down. However, if you want your swords back you can have them, we don't want those damn things here anyways. The only one you have to worry about is the Knight of the Grimoire in town, he holds major disdain for the swords," said Issei. "I see." Said the woman. "Put that away, Zenobia, we are guests." Said the other one, that was more girly than Zenobia. "No, he won't stay out of it, so we need to deal with it, Irina." Said Zenobia, drawing her sword. "Put that thing away before I break it." Said Issei. "I would like to see you try." Said Zenobia, swinging her sword above her head, prepared to strike Issei down, but he got up and walked in Zenovia's direction, and before she could bring the sword down, Issei drew his gun and fired 3 rounds in quick succession, and the sword was deflected, and Issei resisted the sword's power, and the sword's energy was negated. When the dust from the room settled, Issei's gun was in Zenovia's face, and her face was full of horror at the flaming gun in her face, and the barrel cold and dark at its center. "I said put it away or I will break it," said Issei, and she stepped back, the horror still on her face, and Ogi prepared to fight. Rainier, who just arrived, summoned 2 shadow blades. "Stand down, they lack manners, but we should not stoop to their level. Stand down," said Issei, and they did just that, Rainier dispelling her blades and Ogi going back to an upright position. "I want you to think on this, Zenovia, and think hard. Just because you have an Excalibur doesn't make you invincible. The user is mortal, and once its user is dead, the sword falls silent until its next wielder comes and picks it up," said Issei, and they left. Just as soon as they came, a series of events followed where Irina would notice her childhood friend Mitsuda, who had become a massive pervert, and he and Kiba fought Irina and Zenovia and were defeated but not killed. "Lady Sona, I would like to pursue the cadre class more aggressively if we find him. I know that my peerage members won't be able to fight the bastard, but I alone can probably pull it off," said Issei. "No, I trust your peerage member, but I don't think you alone are enough. After all, a cadre class would have to have been around for a long time to become a cadre class," said Sona. "Yes. However, most with power are arrogant and have not trained a single day in their life. I am different, you and Rias are different. I can do it, just let me," said Issei. "No, my answer is final," said Sona, and Issei disregarded it and decided to hang around Mitsuda, and when sneaking around and following Mitsuda, he found Kaneko had the same intentions and followed Mitsuda and Saji closely. "Their president is nice and forgiving, mine turns into a complete demon if I disobey. Like hell I'm going to do that," said Saji, walking away, and was caught by Kaneko, and all 4 of them met at the table. "I was told the same thing, Saji, however I intend to disobey. Snitch on me and you'll regret it. The revenge of my peerage member relies solely on finding the one in charge. It is only coincidence that not only is signs of a cadre class in town, but it's practically confirmed by the presence of holy swords," said Issei. "The one in charge is likely Kakabiel, the church soldiers from yesterday mentioned him," said Mitsuda. "Kakabiel, huh?" Rainier said. "That guy was practically the warmonger of the fallen angels. I think we are going to bring some more players to the party if you don't mind," said Issei, and they all nodded. "Then all that's left is to find the church soldiers," said Mitsuda, and once school ended all 4 of them took a walk and found them easily. "Begging isn't looked upon well in this country," said Issei, and Zenovia flinched. "Come along, we have something to discuss," said Mitsuda, and they all went to a nearby restaurant, and the priestly soldiers stuffed their faces with food and practically ran Mitsuda's wallet dry. "Now you said you wanted to discuss something," said Zenovia, still wary of Issei, who had given her quite the scare, and he noticed she was giving him the stink eye. "We want to assist in the search for the blades, and Issei wants to search for their leader and eliminate him," said Mitsuda. "My peerage member Rainier was betrayed by that man, and I am willing to pay back her loyalty by giving her what she wants," said Issei. Said Irina in deep thought. "We do have a secondary mission. If we can't recover them, we have to destroy them and recover the cores," said Zenovia. "Then that solves the Kiba issue," said Issei. "What? You want to let him destroy the Excaliburs that the enemy has?" asked Saji. "Yes, it's the only way to get Kiba to work with us," said Mitsuda, and he got Kiba to meet him at the fountain, and they agreed, and Issei met up with them all. Then tonight we go on the hunt and search for the swords in the cadre class. We will circle in the air while you guys on the ground hunt for the swords," said Issei, and they all nodded. Later that night, "Anything, Hilda?" asked Issei. "No, I have nothing, but it seems that Group 1 has found the holy swords and are in combat," said Hilda. "Assist them and take Rainier with you. Don't let any of those blades touch you. The damage taken can lethal if a devil is struck by one," said Issei, and he maintained his watch with Ogi and Caddis in tow, and he finally spotted something. As the priest and Valper were escaping, he saw feathers, black ones in a set path. He was tracking 3 of the people, Kiba, Irina and Zenobia, and then the Black Angel launched a light spear. "There he is, get him," said Issei and Caddis. Ogi and him launched directly at Kakabiel, and Caddis and Ogi were immediately wounded and had to back off, while Kuroka was able to get to them and began healing them, while Issei had the Fallen's attention. "Kakabiel, setting a trap, I see," said Issei with his gun aimed at the Fallen head. "Ha, another brat from a devil family, perhaps I should kill you now," said Kakabiel, and Issei kept him distracted because he knew the longer he took Kakabiel's time, the more time the 2 church soldiers and Ria's knight had to escape. "If you can, however, you probably won't be strong enough," said Issei, and he fired a bullet to see what Kakabiel's defenses were like, and as he expected, they were quite thick. His wings destroyed projectiles before they could reach him. He didn't want to know what it would be like to be struck by multiple wings, but he had no choice. "Armor up," said Issei, and the poncho materialized around his body, and he began his assault, getting in close with Kakabiel, and he was able to land a few hits with his gun, but they were mostly scratches, and the demonic rounds worked on him quite effectively. Kakabiel also did damage to him. Cut scrapes and a deep wound took place on Issei's chest. "You brat, that's enough playtime, time to die," said Kakabiel. "Eyes of Tharsis," said Issei, and he saw it, 3 light spears being launched at him, and at that time it was just him against Kakabiel, but he felt the presence of Valper and the other Excalibur approaching. The other 2 were already well out of range. He dodged the light spears, and when he got through he fired a bullet into Kakabiel's leg and into one of his wings, and before he could recover, he hit his aura and escaped. "Where did that brat go?" "Find him," said Kakabiel, but he had already crossed out of their detection range. "Issei's home, never do that again," screamed Caddis, and she stormed off to her room after she had moved into Issei's home, and Issei understood why she was mad. Issei had gone and challenged Kakabiel alone and took a substantial amount of damage. "You know the drill, Issei, no alcohol, no strenuous exercise, etc., said Kuroka after helping with his wounds. "I don't drink though," said Issei, and Kuroka gave a look saying "I know," but he could tell she was quite pissed at him as well for his recklessness. "Boss, let us help next time, being a hero is not what you want to be on a battlefield," said Ogi. He nodded and got up and went to Caddis's room and knocked. "Caddis, I know you're angry, I am sorry, but I didn't have a choice. It was either to get hurt and let our allies escape and for our colleagues to escape or be slaughtered while in full retreat. I allow myself to get hurt because I don't want you to get hurt because of my ideas, but you still did get hurt. Why can't I say it, damn it?" said Issei. "Ha ha, you can't confess, partner," said Vulcan. "Shut up, Caddis, I love you," said Issei, and he walked away with a feeling of melancholy, and he went to his room and went to sleep with that feeling of melancholy, and the next day when he woke up, he found Caddis lying next to him, and he had ended up being the big spoon after she had gone and got into his bed. "Good morning," said Issei, and Caddis woke up, and she was smiling. She must have heard what he said last night and came to his room to apologize or have sex. "We have school, so let's get up," said Caddis, and they both got out of bed, and he just then noticed that Caddis was naked when she went to sleep in his room. Issei undressed and got his uniform on, and she did the same, but when dressing they kept sneaking glances at each other, but Issei knew that he was in for a whole world of pain since he had defied his instructor. "Guo Academy, after school. You disobeyed my orders, Issei. You put your life and the lives of your peerage members at risk, not to mention my pawn and Ria's pawn, knight and rook. You need to listen or else your actions will," said Sona, but Issei interrupted. "Yes, but I put only myself at risk while I held off all 3 while they all escaped. I do admit I didn't come out unscathed, but think about it this way, Zenobia, Irina and Kiba got away from Valper and that holy sword user, and you were able to retrieve your own forces. My own forces were able to easily escape. Hell, you were all able to easily escape because I kept Kakabiel distracted. If I had not, my own peerage would probably be 2 to 3 people short because they would have been killed. There was no choice. If your pieces were going to go after someone as dangerous as them, allowing them to go alone is suicide," said Issei, and this seemed to shut them both up, knowing that what he was saying was the truth. "There is a chance he will make another move tonight. If I have to do this alone, then I will," Issei said while getting up and making his way out of the student council room, and he met up immediately with his peerage and began searching while remaining out of sight of humans, and he finally got a clue from Kuroka. "I found something. Irina is hurt and her sword is gone," said Kuroka, and he relayed the location and what he found to both Sona and Riaz. When all three groups were there, the priest appeared again, introducing himself as a messenger and introducing them all to Kakabiel. "Ah, it's the brats of the devils, nice to meet you, Sona Citri of the Citri clan, and Riaz Gremory of the Gremory clan, and, whoever the hell you are boy," said Kakabiel. "The Vinea clan sends their regards," said Issei, and he stared with intensity in his eyes, and Kakabiel did his whole speech about starting a war and starting with destroying the town and killing the two heiresses in the era Vinea, and he flung light spears to cover his movement, but Issei get behind Sona and Riaz and fired a countervolley which intercepted the light spears, shattering them. "Where did they go?" asked Sona. "There," said Kaneko. "Straight to Kuo Academy. He's planning to level the city. We don't have a choice, we need to stop him," said Issei. "Let's move," said Riaz, and they all got on their way quickly. "Kuroka, contact my father and tell him it's urgent. If his plan succeeds then we all die," said Issei, and they all made it to the school and split up, Issei supporting Riaz and Sona, and her peerage making a barrier to keep damage done to only the school grounds. "Remember, support their movements, don't directly attack yet, we need to wear them down before we can successfully hit Kakabiel," said Issei, and they all understood and went in their separate directions. Irina, Zenobia and Kiba were tied up dealing with the combined Excalibur, and Caddis joined them, and the four of them were pushing the priest back. Baroka supported Kaneko and Asia, who were doing their best trying to deal with the Cerberus and Ogi, and Rainair supported Riaz and Issei, who were also trying to fend off Cerberus dogs as well. Issei wasn't left alone, as Kakabiel had brought more goons with him besides Valper, and that priest wielding the combined Excalibur. More of them came from the gym, they were hiding in preparation for an ambush. Issei hated that. "Baroka, I leave it to you, show these poor souls the power of a pure Nekashu, go all out, you have my permission," said Issei, and he moved on with the Valkyrie in tow, and Kuroka smiled and released her enhanced aura she received when she became a queen piece. Her defensive and latent characteristics, and Kaneko was temporarily stunned when she experienced this aura, but then shook it off as Kuroka attacked at high speeds using her claws in close combat, and when finding an opening firing off her Senjutsu and Yujutsu at close range, weakening the Cerberus and continuing to avoid the three-headed dog's heads and claws, and Kaneko caught on to her sister's pattern and joined the fray, and in a combined attack the dog was too confused to catch either one of them. "To everyone else, show them we are not pushovers, as members of my clan the Vineas our enemy shall perish," said Issei, and Caddis had a smile creep across her face, and the combined Excalibur user was being pushed back by all four swordsmen. The pressure was too much for the one priest until he unleashed its true power, knocking all four people back. One of the Cerberuses bit Mitsuda, but it was quickly healed by Asia, and the Cerberus was looming over them until Kaneko came and rode at its back. The three-headed dogs tried to get her, but it couldn't do it, and it ended up hurting itself by crashing into one of the buildings, and so Kuroka and Kaneko took to taking care of the second one. "Both of you, I have something to give, it might help," said Mitsuda, and quickly both moved towards Mitsuda, and he tapped both of them with his hand-boosted gear gift. Said Mitsuda. "Transfer," said Drake, and the both of them radiated green with more power. "Ha, this power feels amazing, stand back Shirin, I have this one," said Kuroka Kasha. And two wheels made of fire went and it burned and slashed the Cerberus to pieces, and Kuroka then dispelled them, and in its wake a pile of ashes remained. While the battle raged with those groups, Issei began his fight with the enemies pouring out of the gymnasium, and Issei went right into the middle of it, with his gun drawn, and finding a knife amongst the bodies he used the knife as well, and when he put his power into it, it reacted to his power output, and it cut through armor, skin and bone, as if it were made of pure energy. He threw it and it went through one and lodged itself in another, and then he felt it. "Hilda, we must retreat, this place is about to get turned to rubble," said Issei after retrieving his new weapon, and he grabbed Hilda and carried her in a princess carry and ran as fast as he could out the door, and he made it just before the gymnasium exploded in a hail of dust and concrete, and Issei took a hit, and when he looked at it, a piece of shrapnel had pierced his leg. "Ow," said Issei, and he let Hilda down while he got to work on trying to repair the damage to himself, but this time it was Hilda's turn to save him. She picked him up and threw him aside, while the light spear landed where he had been sitting and threw Hilda backwards into the new school building, in which the wall cracked and a blood splatter on the wall. "Riaz, have Asia help my servant, she's wounded bad," and he pointed in the direction that Hilda's unconscious body was currently laying, and he saw Asia, who was being protected by Kaneko, running to aid Hilda, and Issei resumed repairing his leg after pulling out the piece of rebar. "Is this all that you can offer, heir of Vinea?" asked Kakabia, laughing in his cocky manner. "Shut up," said Issei, "your peerage is weaker than ants, they don't even scratch me, and just to be put near death by only one of my light spears shows how poorly you trained them," said Kakabia, boasting and pissing off Issei more. "Shut up," said Issei, "your home and everything you love as well as everyone here will be the spark for the war we all wanted and needed," said Kakabia. "I said shut the hell up," Issei and his aura flared far beyond what Rias could put out, and his gun reacted to his demand for power. I purify the evil and bring their misdeeds to light, the raiser of evil nations and the watcher of schemes. I purify you in the name of the sun. Hellion overdrive. Said Vulcan Cacabiel. Issei, and he turned and seemed to disappear and reappear in front of Cacabiel, and he slammed the fallen angel to the floor from 10 feet in the air, and the angel coughed out spit, but Issei could tell that his attack was too shallow to break any bones. The sun curses you, and I have pity for you, you damned crow. Said Issei, pointing a gun at the fallen angel. Dibba's pav. That sword, it is the source of my pain, I will break it and get revenge for my friends. Said Kibba, is that so? So you are the brat that escaped from the Holy Sword Project, yet the church still uses my work for them to wield the holy swords. Said Valper, you want to see your friends again. Here, take this, it's useless for me to carry around anymore anyways. And he tossed a blue crystal to Kibba and he caught it. He started to cry, and the souls inside the crystal seemed to beckon him to not cry for them and to not get revenge, but to destroy the holy sword, since it is the source of everyone's pain. He absorbed it, and his power reached its peak, and his balance breaker finally showed itself, the holy devil blades, and he. Zenobia and Irina went on the attack, and Irina was knocked unconscious when she was thrown into the track storage room. What? That shouldn't be possible. No, wait, unless Valper started, but he was quickly killed by Cacabiel and Issei, and Cacabiel went back to their stare down again, and Cacabiel spoke up, well, since the idea is already out, and you will likely all die here, I shall tell you what he discovered. The God of the Bible is dead, he has been dead since he went to fight the original Satan. Said Cacabiel, and Asia fainted while Zenobia fell to her knees. The priest was also affected, also falling to his knees as well, not believing what he had just heard. Irina, who was still unconscious and had not heard what Cacabiel had said. Dibba, standing on his feet, heard this and put it in the back of his mind and raided his sword at the priest with the Excaliburs. Hold the sword out and don't attack and let me destroy that sword and I will let you go. Said Kibba, and Issei noticed he was putting on his kind gentleman act, and the priest did this, and Kibba destroyed the sword with the holy devil blades, and the combined Excalibur shattered. If that's the case, Cacabiel, shouldn't we be reaching for the inverse? War will make all three factions go extinct. We came close enough already, we don't need our religion to go extinct. Said Issei, and Cacabiel laughed. You see, that's where you're wrong. If we had continued the war, we fallen would have came out the victors. Now Azazel, the damn traitor, states that we will no longer going to war with the other factions. What the hell is he thinking? Said Cacabiel, you sound like a madman. You have lost your touch, Cacabiel. Said a reverberating voice, and Issei saw it. A wielder of a sacred gear had broken through the barrier and was looking down on him. The armor was as wide as the moon. Albion, the gear of divine, dividing the archenemy of the boosted gear drag. Said Vulcan, and the figure in wide armor began to pummel the fallen angel, and Issei just stood there and let it happen. Damn you, White Dragon Emperor. You dare interfere with my plans. Said Cacabiel, Azazel has asked me to bring you in alive, but he didn't say I couldn't interfere or beat you up a little to have my way. Said a female voice, Divide X5. Said Albion, so the holder of the divine dividing is a woman this time around. Said Vulcan, that woman doesn't have the aura of a fallen parter. Said Vulcan, in Issei's mind it's more akin to a devil. And Issei could sense it too. This white dragon was a devil, but like him before being reintroduced, he was unaffiliated with any faction, but doing work for the fallen angel governor general openly seemed out of character for a devil. Your wings, pale in comparison to Azazel's, his are shining and deep like the night. Said the white dragon emperor as she continued to pummel the fallen angel, and finally Cacabiel was too weak to continue to fight, and at ground level, Mitsuda stared at her, and Rias came up and gave him a tap to the head, jealous at his staring at the white dragon emperor's bountiful body. Will you continue to ignore me, White One? Asked Drake and everyone but Issei, and the White Dragon Emperor was not shocked at this. It has been eons since we have fought, are you still willing to fight me, Red One? Asked Albion, and then the voice of the White Dragon Emperor spoke again. You, Mitsuda Ieyasu, are not strong enough to fight me yet. Get stronger, and maybe one day we will fight. One day. Said the White Dragon Emperor, and she disappeared into the night carrying Cacabiel with her. At least you kept your cool, partner. Said Vulcan, and Issei dispelled the power he had just raised, and he felt it immediately. He was beat pretty bad, and the wound he suffered the night before, and the wound from the gymnasium explosion, was hampering his abilities greatly. Let him up, he needs treatment. Said Asia, and before he passed out he saw the green glow of the sacred gear from Asia healing his wounds. End of the here. So that's it for today's video, guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.